Good morning and welcome to another Friday edition of the Word for You Today. And today we start off with Exodus chapter 24, verses 1 and 2. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. You are to worship at a distance, but Moses alone is to approach the Lord. The others must not come near, and the people may not come up with him." So today our topic is learn to be alone with God. You know, it's essential to be alone with God in order for us to hear clearly from him. For a texting, twittering generation that is hooked on cell phones and bombarded by round-the-clock media, this can be a very difficult concept to grasp. But until we do, we'll get nowhere spiritually. Are you serious about following Jesus? Luke chapter 5, verse 16 tells us that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. We see that after Jesus fed the 5,000, Matthew 14, 22 and 23 records that immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. How did Jacob, the deceiver, become Israel, a prince with God? Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 through 28 says that night Jacob got up and he took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And after he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all of his possessions. So Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So the man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." So we see that Jacob was left alone, and there the angel of the Lord came and they wrestled until daybreak, and Jacob received a blessing. The greatest spiritual victories come from the battles that God calls us to fight when we're alone with him. He outlines and he clarifies his plans for our lives when there's nobody else around. And that's because he wants us to be more influenced by him than by all of the thems that are out there trying to pour into our lives on a daily basis. When God is grooming you for a special assignment, you'll be required to spend time outside of the company of others. In Exodus, God said that Moses alone was to approach, and that the people could not come up with him. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 11, after Elijah had spent the night in a cave all by himself, God told him, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." In Daniel chapter 10, verse 8, Daniel says, "So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless." But in that time of being alone, Daniel had a great vision. And Jeremiah writes in Jeremiah 15, verse 17, "I never sat in the company of revelers, never made merry with them. I sat alone because your hand was on me, and you had filled me with indignation." Jeremiah was filled with the things of God, and he was alone because of that. But in that loneliness, Jeremiah was able to share all that God wanted him to share. So it's important that we learn the difference between loneliness and solitude. When God sidelines us, glean all that you can from that experience, and then move on to the next level. It's good to be alone with God. So take the time to read God's Word, to read in your devotional daily, and to spend time in prayer with God. Learn to be alone with God. That's the word for you today. Now, tomorrow's word for you today focuses on breaking bad habits. And on Sunday, it's about getting free from debt. So be sure to take the time to check those out in your Word for You Today devotional. And if you need one of these, be sure and let us know. Also, want to remind everybody that this is the last Sunday to contribute to our school closet fund or to donate school supplies, clothing, or sneakers for our local school partners. Osceola Elementary School, Piccolata Crossing Elementary School, Passetti Bay Middle School, or Tocoi Creek High School. So we are so grateful for all that you've done, and I know the schools appreciate it so much. Finally, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on Sunday, whether it be in person or online for worship at 9 and 11 a.m. Have a great weekend. We love you, church.